Hello and welcome to the fifth webinar in our 2026 planning series. Today's focus, syncing your timetable to the school data platform. After today, we take a short break from the formal webinars, but we will be sending through some 5-minute videos that answer some FAQs that have been appearing in our inbox of late. Next term, we jump into the exciting stuff, webinars that show you how to use our shiny new apps. I'll send through specific details over the coming days and weeks. Now, before we get started, let's talk about why keeping your timetable data up to date in school data is so valuable. The time you invest syncing your files will be more than repaid through time savings, particularly when it comes to communicating accurate, current information to teachers, students, the finance office, and your executive team. So let's go through the 7 key benefits of syncing your timetable data to school data. Firstly, you get a complete accessible summary of classes. When your timetable is synced, you can view a clean summary of every class on the current grid screen. Via the permissions button, you can grant access to anyone, the business manager, principal, or learning leaders. So instead of generating endless reports or emails, leaders can simply log in and see everything. Classes, who's teaching them, durations, periods per cycle, all in one place. Automated teacher load calculations. On the current load screen, staff loads are calculated automatically. This is a favourite feature for finance and payroll, but also invaluable for directors of staffing and principals. No manual collation or several people trying to access the same timetable file at once. Just accurate, up-to-date load information at a glance. Load visibility for teachers. When you publish loads, teachers can log in and see the load on their dashboard. This is fantastic for previewing future loads, clarifying questions about allocations, and ensuring everyone is on the same page early. Dynamic reports for current allocations. Your current reports are as powerful as your planner reports. 2 key reports to explore are subject allocations all, where you can see every subject, its classes and teachers, dynamically updated as you change the date ranges. And staff allocations all. See each teacher, their classes, subjects, and accurate FTE. Again, updating live as you apply date filters. Student class history for prerequisites. The current student preferences table lists all classes your students are in or have been in across any sync timetable files. This table powers your subject selection prerequisites. Tip, and I will say this again on the relevant screen, when importing multiple timetable files, ensure the published dates reflect the actual sequence. Earlier files should have earlier published dates. Here's why. If Charlie has moved out of accounting mid-year, but you publish the semester 2 file first, it will look like Charlie has moved in, and this will affect prerequisites and class lists and so on. Timetable previews for staff. We saw the teacher loads on dashboards earlier, but did you know that you can also allow staff to preview actual timetables? You can sync and publish as many timetables as you like. Feedback day, exam timetables, future term timetables. Teachers can log in and preview them all in school data with no need for multiple environments or dev setups. And yard roster visibility. As part of your sync, you can also publish the master yard duty timetables. If your school allows staff to view the full roster for arranging swaps, this is an easy way to give them access. All right, so how do we sync our timetables? Well, step 1 before you sync is to make sure key tables match between your timetable file and your master school data tables. Now we know that sounds a little bit annoying, but these 2 bits of information should put your mind at ease. Firstly, when you run an import, you can download files that tell you where there are discrepancies. And secondly, we have a growing suite of apps that help you tidy your data. It's important to remember that the first time you sync your timetable, there might be quite a few discrepancies. After the initial tidy, we suggest importing your timetable every time something changes. or perhaps once a fortnight. Schools who do this find that each import takes 1 to 2 minutes because there's never more than one teacher to add or 2 or 3 class codes to tidy. Okay, so which tables really matter? Subjects is the big one. But if you use menu 7D in the TFX to ensure that the subject code column here is accurate, you're about 90% of the way there. But it must be said, this is the biggest cause of mismatches. Firstly, as I said, scan this subject code column and the suffix column to make sure suffixes haven't crept into the subject code column or vice versa. And we can see here that the subject code has been chopped off. If you adjust the subject code, the suffix should be automatically corrected. Let's see that again down here. If we remove this trailing 0, the suffix is reset accurately. Now, for 99% of schools, that's it. As long as the subject codes exist in the school data master subjects table, you're good to go. And remember, when you import, you will get a report telling you which codes don't exist. I do want to talk about code patterns just for a second. If you are in the majority, you shouldn't need them. Our importer should be able to detect the subjects you're importing from the codes in the file and from your option code in the master subjects table. But let's talk about 2 common scenarios that you will need to be prepared for. Scenario number 1 is very rare, and this is really the only scenario where we think you'll need code patterns. This school actually appends the calendar year to the start of the subject and class code. But they only do this in the timetable file. This allows them to run Head Start classes without having to end date the current year's classes that would otherwise be using the same code as next year's classes. But while they want the subject code in the timetable file to be, for example, 25 space BM033, but they just want the code in their master subjects table to be BM033 without the 25 and space at the beginning. So they set a code pattern over here to tell the site that it should expect to find YY space, that stands for 2 calendar year characters, then a space, before it finds 5 option code characters, then NN for 2 numerical characters. You can also use U for uppercase letter, L for lowercase letter, C for campus, and S for semester. But I probably wouldn't use code patterns if semester codes and campus codes are the issue. I would use the unit codes field. And this brings us to scenario 2. See here how this school is experimenting with putting the semester code at the front of the subject code, and they're even squeezing in the campus code in the middle here, the end of the subject code, but before the suffix. In semester 2, this code at the front will change from a 1 to a 2, but each year it's the same pattern. They can simply use the unit code field here to set these 2 variations of the same option code, and the timetable importer will check this unit code field to try to find a match to the record it has imported from the timetable. Now, if you know me at all, you'll know that going through these one by one to enter the unit codes is not an option. So I'll be exporting this table to Excel and then writing a formula. And I'm going to do this very quickly. Perhaps watch this a few times if you want the formula, or do what I do occasionally, which is just explain to ChatGPT what you're trying to do and ask for the formula. Okay, so I'm going to press the 3 dots and I'm going to export to CSV. Now in this unit code field, I basically want to take the option code, but I want to add a 1 to the first instance of this option code, then a comma after the first instance, then I want to add a 2 to the second instance. So here's my formula. Equals 1 and option code, and an ampersand represents and, open quotations, comma, end the quotations, ampersand, 2, ampersand, option code. So to read this, it's basically saying 1 and the option code, and then a comma, and then a 2 and the option code. If I press enter, you can see that I have what I'm after. I'm going to simply double click the bottom right hand corner to expand this out to all options in my table. It may not apply to all options, so you may need to go through and remove the irrelevant ones. But I want to get rid of these formulas now, and to do this, while the column is still highlighted, I'm going to press Control C and then hold down Alt, tap H for Harry, V for Victory, and V for Victory again, and my formulas have been replaced with actual values. Now I press Control S, that saves this back to my downloads, navigate back to my table, press the three dots, merge because I'm not adding any new records, browse for my file, press merge, and OK. And it's that quick. My unit codes have been added to the unit code column. Okay, rest assured, the other four tables are much, much simpler. We have cleared the biggest hurdle. Teachers, codes in the timetable file must match your master staff table. Similarly, student codes must match between your SFX, your student file, and your master students table. Codes in your unscheduled duties, menu 4B of your TFX, should match your master allowances table in school data. And room codes should match your master rooms table. The good news, as I've mentioned, our importer checks these for you, so there's no manual cross-checking required. Okay, one final check before we run the importer. We want our teaching allocation dates to line up with term and semester dates. Otherwise, the term and semester boxes won't be the same width or size as the teacher allocations. So I'm going to go to Setup Tasks here, and I'm going to click Course Dates. Because we're running the current timetable importer, I'm interested in these current start dates and current end dates. Now, what you'll notice here, if you look at term 1 and 2, you will notice that I leave no gap between the end of term 1 and the start of term 2. This is important. I select the middle Saturday as the end date for term 1 and the middle Sunday as the start date for term 2. The reason for that is if we're using dates to precisely calculate FTEs, we can't have gaps, or teachers will be deemed to have an FTE of 0 during the holidays. That's not great if we're using the site to calculate average FTE. Okay, we are now ready to run the importer. Back in Matrix Planning, I'm going to go to Current Grid and Import Timetables. And you'll notice here that this school has already imported a lot of timetables over the journey. Click Run TFX Parser, select your timetable file, select your published on date and also the date range of the timetable file you're importing. So say for example, I am importing this file for term 1, 29th of January through to the 12th of April, as we said before. I'm going to say that I publish this on the 29th of January. This is to ensure that if students move between classes, I always have a record of their position in or out of each class at present. Now we can select an import mode here. I call this top option, import no classes or allowances, test mode. Basically, it will still generate our discrepancy reports for us, but it won't import any data. Now, if you're having a first go at this, feel free to import data. It is very easy to delete the entire current grid if you import error-riddled data or something like that. So I'm going to select import teachers to classes and also import students preferences. Your school name should automatically appear here, as should all relevant campuses. Just one side note that is only relevant to multi-campus schools. If you're a single campus school and you see more than one campus here, just tick them all. If you are a multi-campus school, it's important to know that at present you can only import one timetable file at a time. That is fine if your files are split by campus, but our wipe and replace technology that I'll talk about in just a second means that each allowance really needs to be in the correct campus's file, and it should be tagged with that campus in master allowances. Contact us if you need any clarification about that point there. Okay, click Run TFX Parser and OK, and your timetable should start importing. Okay, let's go and have a look at what has happened. Now remember, we only imported this for one term. But if I go back to current grid here in matrix planning and I press current grid all, you could go to classes and allowances separately, but I often just go to all to see everything. You'll notice that it has brought in all term one classes here and teacher allocations. If you have a class that's taught by multiple staff, that is displayed in the data here and the tile is orange. Okay, I want to show you one or two more things with this importer. So I'm going to go back to import timetables. I'm going to press run TFX parser again, and I'm going to find the term 2 file this time. These dates are 13th of April, and I do need to be careful to make sure that it exactly abuts the end of term 1. And the end date here is going to be the 23rd of June for this school here. I'm going to import classes, import teachers and students. While that's importing, I want to talk about test mode that I mentioned earlier. If you're syncing regularly and you're pretty confident that there won't be discrepancies or there'll only be a couple, it's fine to import directly. Just check the reports that I'm about to show you and then adjust and re-import over the top if needed. That is one great feature of this system. If you import a term 1 timetable, say Feb 1 to March 31 for simplicity's sake, and then something changes halfway through, let's say on the 7th of March, just import your new version of your timetable from March 7 to March 31 over the top, and it will delete the original March 7 to 31 allocations and replace them with those from the updated timetable. Now, I've talked a lot about discrepancies, so if I press OK here, you'll notice in the bottom left-hand corner, there is a button that says Download Generate Report. If I click that, it downloads to my Downloads folder a series of CSVs. In fact, if I show you my Downloads folder, it has actually downloaded 9 files here. You might recall that earlier I said that if there are discrepancies, don't worry, the system will tell you where those discrepancies lie. Well, this TFX parser log details file contains all of them. Now, there might be a lot of data in here, so let's expand these columns. You'll get some general stats over here, but the important data I think lies off to the right. You will get a list of subjects that might need to be added to your master subjects table. In this case, it's telling me that they are in the wrong campus. So you get an idea of exactly what you need to tidy before you re-import your timetable file. Over here, if there were any unscheduled duties that weren't in my master allowances table, they would appear here. Rooms that need to be added to my master subjects table are found over here. Teachers are here, and students are over on the far right. Now that's all well and good, but if you have stacks of records in those columns, you're not going to want to add them manually. Thankfully, that report that we've downloaded also downloaded all of the import files. So if we have staff, for example, who we need to add, it has created a CSV with the staff we need to add in the format that we can import directly into the master staff table. Likewise, if we had those staff in the table, but we need to update some records, they are downloaded to a master staff update CSV. So once again, I would suggest reading the parser log first, and over time, if you take care of your data, you're going to find that there's very often nothing in that log, which is wonderful news. All right, let's go and have a look at the timetables we have just imported. Let's go to current grid and current grid all as discussed earlier. And all of your class and allowance data is here in the one place. You have seen me talk about permissions, and yes, you can absolutely grant access to the head of English to only see classes where faculty equals ENG, for example. One task on our whiteboard to implement over the next fortnight or so is class lists. We think we will replace this redundant View Teachers button with View Class Lists, so stay tuned for that. You can view teachers in the teachers column or simply by clicking on the bar itself. Let's go and have a look at student preferences. This is all important because it governs what students can and cannot select on their subject selection forms if you have created certain rules. Under Current Grid, go to Current Student Preferences. And as we showed you before, all students are in here with every subject that they are doing or have done at some point over the course of the year. If we scroll to the right, you'll notice that some students have allocation unticked. This means that they have moved out of this class and are not currently in it. Bear in mind, the system is equipped to handle students who have finished an elective. So if an elective only ran for semester 1, they will still be ticked as having that allocation. This means if an elective is set up as a prerequisite, the system will recognise that they have completed it. Okay. Now, for those of you playing at home, yes, that's right. I did say you could show staff their actual timetables and a master yard roster. I was a little sneaky because this is a separate import, but this one requires no data checking or anything. It is simply a rapid import that gives a visual representation of the data in your timetable. Go to Current Grid, and under Import Timetables, you will see Import Timetables and Yards, and Preview is in brackets. All you have to do is run the timetable parser, select your file, a year and a date range. Once again, your school ID should appear here. Run the parser and your timetables will be imported. Note, they will not automatically be published, but all you have to do to publish them to teacher dashboards is tick the Publish column. I would suggest changing the auto-generated heading and alt text to something that will mean something to staff who access this. But this parser will bring in the timetable and the yard duty roster for each file you import. Now, all that's left to do is to show you how to publish all of the information we discussed earlier from the main timetable parser. Under Setup Tasks up here, you have School Views. And you can see that there are quite a few options. If you're using last year's planner as your source of truth for loads, then you can tick Planner Loads 2025. If you are happy with the timetables you've imported using the TFX parser we've discussed today, you can change this to Current Loads 2025. You can also have a combination of the two. In Term 3, you are going to want to use Planner Loads 2026, although I would strongly recommend that you leave this unticked until you are ready to share provisional loads with teachers. But when that time comes, simply click this button here and your teachers will log in with single sign-on and they will see their provisional loads. It is that simple. So syncing your timetable to school data will take a little prep the first time, but once you are set up, you'll import timetables in a minute or two each time. And just like that, you'll have a platform that houses all your real-time staff, student, class, and allowance data, along with timetable and yard duty information. The days of generating reports and timetables and then sending them out are behind you. Thank you as always for your attendance, and I will now take a minute to read any questions that might have come through, and I will see you back in the meeting shortly.